Hello everybody, I hope you're all doing well. My name is Ashley and welcome to the Library of a Silversaint where we talk all things books. I'm feeling very excited about saying that today because it's officially the Library of a Silversaint because I'm wearing my new Silversaint t-shirt, which is by Flowers and Fantasy on Instagram. It just arrived today and I absolutely adore it. Look at it, it's so perfect. And it also has the little detail of the 7-star on the sleeve. I absolutely adore it. It's so good. And I just love everything about it. Courtney did an amazing idea. Courtney, who runs Flowers and Fantasy, such a great shop. I've got a few t-shirts from her now and it's just awesome. When she showed me the design for this, I just it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So I feel very on brand today. Library of a Silversaint. I wanted to hop on today to record a little video because I've been thinking, I've obviously been sort of updating you guys that I've started my read along on Discord for The Hobbit and Empire of the Vampire, and it got me thinking that, cozy season is starting, autumn is starting, the kids have all gone back to school where we are, and it's sort of settling down for that cozy season. And so I thought I would give a few recommendations or share some of my recommendations of cozy, maybe not always cozy, but cozy to me, autumnal September reads, October reads, not necessarily spooky as such, we're not quite in spooky season, but just sort of reads that to me feel very, very autumnal, and that for me the perfect book to get cozy with, under a blanket by the fire with some Lord of the Rings ambience on in the background, that sort of thing. So I thought I would share a few of my recommendations, but these are fantasy specific. So I would like to do another one of these videos at some point with maybe some more sort of spooky horror books, but also then maybe just some sort of non-fantasy books, just some sort of literary fiction, because there's quite a few books on my shelf that are more literary fiction that are also quite sort of autumnal. So I'd like to do another video about that as well. But for now, I'm just going to talk to you about the fantasy ones. So I've got quite a few, so I'm not going to go into too much detail because many of these I've spoken about quite a lot of times on my channel, but I'm just going to talk to you about a few. But first, I just have to try a sip of my new, so I haven't got a biscuit tea today, guys. It's a new tea. We got this in the Black Forest. I don't know if you can see that, but on the picture it's got cinnamon and apple pie, and it literally smells like apple strudel, like warm apple pie. Oh my gosh, to be fair, that is fresh out of the kettle, so it's probably a terrible idea to drink this straight away. Oh, that's really good. That's really good. I mean, I love my biscuit tea, but I do also love a festive fruit tea, and this is going to be, I think, my new drink of autumn. My goodness. There were so many to choose from, but that one just looked spot on, and it absolutely is. Anyway, I'm going to start because otherwise I'm going to take forever. So first things first, I'm not going to take a lot of time for these ones because they're not going to surprise anybody, but being on brand, I have to say it. It would be rude not to. I have to say Empire of the Vampire, the series by J. Kristoff. I believe that honestly, this is the perfect time of year to be reading these, super gothic, vampire-esque. Personally, I find these really cozy and perfect for this time of year, even though they are absolutely, utterly devastating and complete tearjerkers and will rip your heart out. That's the kind of book I love to get cozy with. I know I'm a bit strange in that way, but I honestly think this is the perfect time of year to read. These are the perfect books to read at this time of year. So we've got Empire of the Vampire, Empire of the Damned, which I honestly think, as I say, are perfect. Really gothic-esque. You've got the beautiful descriptions of the world, which is brutal and cold. And actually, I think that this is the perfect time to read that because you can be all cozied up inside under a blanket by a fireplace and be reading about the bitter, devastating cold outside. In this world, in Empire of the Vampire, we have something called Day's Death, where the sun hasn't shone properly for 27 years. So the land is very cold and bleak and desolate, and there's nothing really growing because you can't grow anything in those conditions. So it's really harsh and I'd say brutal, bitter and cold. But to be reading about that when snuggled up under a blanket for cozy season, I would absolutely recommend this as a sort of autumnal seasonal read. And then, of course, because we are doing the read along and have just started, I think it goes without saying that autumn months, the sort of books that make us feel like that time of year, The Hobbit and, of course, The Lord of the Rings in general, are perfect. I love rewatching the films. I would probably say I rewatch the Lord of the Rings films twice a year, I would say twice a year. because it's, for me, it's that ultimate comfort. It's super cozy, super comforting. I think that's what this time of year is perfect for. So obviously I'm mentioning it because we're doing the read along, which has just started, but I have to say, I think, this world, Middle Earth, that Tolkien created, with the dwarves, the elves, the beautiful descriptions of Middle Earth, the Shire, that is comfort. It is comfort, and it's so cozy, and that sense of adventure, but also the description of a hobbit, of Bilbo Baggins as well, and not just the hobbits in general, of just wanting not too much adventure, just to be cozy, wrapped up at home, eating all of their food, drinking tea, reading, getting cozy, baking. That is awesome to me. And so I think this story would be the perfect read, but I'm not going to talk about it anymore because I feel like it's a bit of an obvious one. My next series I want to talk about is, actually, it's not a series, but it's part of a series, as in it sort of is an addition, and that is A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms by George R.R. Martin. So this is 3 short stories focusing around 2 characters in Westeros, in the world of Westeros, but it's set about 100 years before the events of A Song of Ice and Fire take place, so before Game of Thrones take place. We focus on 2 main characters. They are Sir Duncan the Tall, a knight, and we also have a little character, a young, very... Ernie joined at the perfect time. Hello. I'm talking about... I'm not going to cover up your face. The other character is Egg, and he's a very young boy, and it's 3 short stories that take place in the world of Westeros with those 2 characters, and they are kind of perfectly matched in the funniest way. So Dunk, he's often referred to as like Dunk the Lunk. He's very sort of, he sort of describes himself as like thick, he's not very knowledgeable, not very worldly. He's a bit of a, not a brute, but he's a bit of a sort of a gentle giant. He's obviously very accomplished as a knight, but he is a bit sort of ditzy sometimes. Oh, hello, Eddie. And then you've got Egg, the other character, who's just a tiny little boy, but is incredibly intelligent and incredibly knowledgeable about so many things, and so wise. And so their relationship is really interesting because they kind of really balance each other out, which I loved. And the 3 stories are just following them on their little journeys. That's my fruit tea, as they are sort of just journeying through Westeros on these little quests that they're going on. And you can kind of see some of the politics of the wider world of Westeros sort of going on in the background, but it's nowhere near as sort of brutal and intense as A Song of Ice and Fire, the events from that are. So I would say that it sort of gives you that epic fantasy world, but also gives you that coziness in a really cool fantasy world. So I would highly recommend this as a sort of autumnal read as well, to sort of break up some larger reads as well, because obviously this is 3 short stories, so I think that's quite nice too. So there's another recommendation. And he's currently laying on my other recommendations, so I'm just going to prize them from his paws. My next recommendation, I probably should have saved this. He's just slid literally all over the floor. I probably should have saved this one for sort of more October-y Halloween time. I'm a mood reader, but also I do plan my TBR quite far in advance. I generally will read any genre at any time of the year, and I actually read this, A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, probably, I think I read it in springtime actually, so I don't follow my own advice, but I do think this would be a really great autumnal read, although you could maybe push it a bit more towards sort of October and spooky season. So A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson is a sort of retelling of Dracula, but it's told from the point of view of one of his wives, who is called Constanta, and it's really interesting because it's told in a series of letters, love letters from her to him. It's utterly devastating. And it shows sort of the glamorized side of sort of Dracula and vampires, but in a completely different light. Dracula, I think, is very glamorized as a character. And then seeing him in this, as he's portrayed in this book, was very interesting and eye-opening. We see, even though he is a villain, we see a completely different side to him, and we see the effect that he has on people that he brings into his life, or into his afterlife, should I say. But Constanta's story and her letters to him are utterly devastating. And this is very dark, but beautifully lyrical. Like, the writing is absolutely stunning. I could have highlighted the whole book pretty much. This is one, for example. Here's an example. My lord, my liege, beloved king, my darling, my defender. I had so many names for you in those days, my cup of devotion overflowing with titles worthy of your station. It's just beautiful. Her writing is absolutely beautiful. This is not an easy read. It's not an easy read. It delves into a lot of quite dark themes. So there is a list of trigger warnings at the beginning of the book, which if it's something that you feel like you need to check, then it's definitely worth doing. And she does put it there for you. But it is so beautiful. And I guess a lot of people would sort of say it's like a feminist retelling, but it's just showing the point of view of one of his wives and the relationship that she had with him, and also the relationship that she had with other members of sort of Dracula's love life, his other lovers. He didn't just have one; he had multiple, and that's really interesting too. And I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. It's very short, easy to devour, and I utterly adored it. So I would highly recommend A Dowry of Blood. Another recommendation is Piranesi, I say Piranesi, by Susanna Clarke. Now, this I'm going to say very, very little about, because for me, the less you know going into this, the better. I would say that the only thing I'd heard about this book before I actually read it was multiple people saying that it was incredible, but mostly that for the first sort of 50% of the book, the majority of people that spoke about it said they did not know what was going on, and that actually they were really pleased that they didn't know anything going in, which is why I went in knowing nothing further than that, and why I would recommend you do the same if you haven't read this already but would like to try it. Fundamentally, this is a story about Piranesi. We don't really know anything about Piranesi. We just know that Piranesi lives in this very strange house. It's a strange house that is a bit sort of like a labyrinth almost. It's sort of full of long, winding sort of corridors, and you've got sort of like big archways, and there's, ceilings that go on forever. There's sort of like clouds and rainfall inside. There's water in the house. So there's like a sea, rivers and things like that. And every day, Piranesi gets up and explores the house a little bit further to try and work out who he is, what he's doing, why he is there, why they are there, and what is going on. And that is all I will tell you, because that's all I knew, and I'm glad that's all I knew. The first 50%, I do have to agree with other reviewers. I had no idea what was going on, and I very much just sort of had this opinion of just buckle up, settle in for the ride and see what we get. The payoff for this is incredible. My mind was blown. My mind was absolutely blown. And actually, I didn't notice until sort of about the 60%, 70% mark, actually how many sort of themes Susanna talks about in this, or sort of uncovers in this. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. The writing is stunning. It's a ride. It's a ride. But the reason I suggest it as a sort of autumnal read is because of the descriptions of the house. It feels very sort of, maybe gothic's not the right word, but I think there are definitely sort of elements of that. And because there's a lot of sort of nature explored, and like I say, the beautiful descriptions of the house and like columns and the ceilings and just all of that, all the writing, the language that Susanna uses, personally, I felt were very sort of, if you're going to read a book at a certain time of year for that reason, I think this suits that sort of autumnal cozy time of year. So I would highly recommend Piranesi. Then I can't really go many videos without talking about this series, but I would also recommend the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. One of my favourite series of all time. This is everything that I will ever need and want in epic fantasy. That's all I need to say. This is a very dark epic fantasy series with a huge amount of everything I love. Things like found family, animal companions, incredible battle scenes, and it's essentially a very simple story of good versus evil, but there's just so much that John is able to pack into this. The biggest thing from this is love for the characters. I have never read a series like this before, where my love for the characters is so strong, so strong, to the point where I wish that I was actually friends. I felt like I was friends. They feel like it feels like you are with these characters. It feels like you are on the journey with them. So in this story, you follow a young man called Corban, who basically, it's kind of a bit like a chosen one trope. He and many other people kind of go on a bit of a journey to defeat evil in this land, which is called the Banished Lands. We have angels and demons. We have giants. We have incredible giant sort of lizards called drakes. You have wolves. You have crows. You've got just everything that you could possibly want is in this. It will make you laugh. It will make you cry. It's everything. It's everything. And I think the world of the Banished Lands that John has created, to me, it feels, and he's just attacking like a toy in the background. Oh no, it's his blanket. To me, it's not quite like Middle Earth, because it does take a lot of what is in Middle Earth and then adds new elements to it, which is what I love. I think it was a really refreshing fantasy read in that sense. But I think that cozy found family feeling with the animals and everything that go with this and the battle scenes, I honestly just think it is the perfect book to get cozy with. I would read this at any point ever. I read it in summer, but under a blanket with a fire crackling in the background, yeah, I think that's a great time to read this, because you need it. If anything, you need it for the emotional distress that you're going to go through, because these characters, John puts them through the ringer, and through them, he puts us through the ringer. You need a comfort drink and a comfort blanket to emotionally get you through this. So I think autumn's a great time to read this. So would highly recommend, if you've not read this series, read it. Okay, the next series I'm going to talk about is another series that I've spoken about a lot recently, which is the Gael Song trilogy. Sorry, I was thinking of the name of the series then. The Gael Song trilogy by Shauna Lawless. So this is book 1, The Children of Gods and Fighting Men. We then have The Words of Kings and Prophets and The Land of the Living and the Dead. This is an incredible trilogy. I've spoken about it so much on this channel recently because I recently read it. Oh, it's incredible. So this is Irish history meets fantasy meets mythology. So it's a bit of a mashup. So we do have a lot of real Irish history, sort of 10th, 11th sort of century AD. And it takes real historical events that took place. Some characters are sort of given different names and things like that, but Shauna really kept as many of the sort of historical events as she could in here, which is so cool, because it's something that I'd never heard of these things, and now I want to go and learn more. But then with those events, she then weaves quite a lot of Irish mythology and folklore, which is so interesting. So we get magic in this series. Basically, this series centers around 2 main POVs, 2 females. So we have Gormla, who is a fire mage, a Fomorian, so she has fire power, and she is in this world. Fomorians are supposed to be extinct and sort of extinguished from the world, but Gormla is there, and she is hiding her power. She is married to a king, and she is trying to maneuver herself through this world of politics in a world where women don't have a lot of power, if any, at all. And she uses her intelligence, and she understands the brains of the people that she is with, but she knows that as a woman she can't do anything, so she just manipulates them, and it's just incredible to read about. So we have her, but then she's hiding her fire magic. That's a really interesting element to add to this story. We then have another POV, which is Fola. Fola is kind of a weird, murky mirror image of Gormla. So Fola is very kind and gentle and sweet and compassionate and caring, and she is a descendant of a clan, and she has these descendants of these clans have different powers depending on the sort of which descendant they come from. And Fola is a healer, and so she is also hiding her powers. But there are multiple descendants, whereas fire mages, Fomorians, it's just meant to be Gormla. and they are natural sort of enemies. And in this sort of political world, they really are enemies. And as I say, they're kind of like murky mirror images of each other. Gormla being fiery, Fola being so kind and compassionate, but they both really are able to manipulate the people around them. In some ways a lot more intentionally than others, but they're able to sort of manipulate the circumstances that they're in order to achieve what they want to. Gormla wants her son to become king one day, and she wants to be sort of ruling sort of through him in a way. Fola just wants peace. She just wants peace in a world of war. And I just love it. I just love it. It's so beautiful. It's paced brilliantly. I don't know how Shauna does it, but she manages to get all of these lovely, tender, heartfelt moments, but with also just the story, just the plot just gets thicker and thicker and thicker. It just never stops. It never relents. And I just found that was such a skill, such a talent. And Shauna is an incredible author. And I love this series. But because it has those sort of feelings of, like, I would say, I've sort of spoken about this before. Aesthetically, the series on Netflix, The Last Kingdom, that is what I would say this really reminds me of. That kind of Nordic Viking inspired world. So, Ernie. So, and I find that is a really sort of cozy, brutal, cold. Cozy, brutal and cold do not go together, but in my brain they do. I think they go really well together, and it's perfect for autumn. So I'd highly recommend this. And then finally, and again, I probably should have pushed this to be more of like an October spooky read, but I'm going to include it because I would read this at any time of the year and be perfectly happy. But witchy season, autumn is when you want to be reading this book, and that is Slewfoot by Brom. I have mentioned this before. I read this a couple of years ago now. This is a great book. I had never read anything like this before in my entire life, but I saw a few people talk about it in some sort of like horror, top horror reads of the year videos that I watched, and this one came up a lot. It's a masterpiece. It's an absolute masterpiece. In this story, we are set in 1666 in Connecticut in the USA, and we are focused around this main character who is pictured on the front here. We've got Abatha. Abatha is just a regular girl living in a village. She is married to her husband, who is perfectly fine. She's perfectly happy. Everything's fine. Life's not amazing, but they get by. She's pretty happy with him. He's not that mean. He's good to her. And then one day, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, her husband dies. And it looks like a really odd accident. It's a bit strange. And everybody in the village that Abatha lives in is suspicious. Everyone's thinking, that's suspicious. Why is he dead in that way? That's weird. Like, was it an animal? Nobody, but Abatha doesn't know. She just knows that he died. So that happens. And then, out of nowhere, a strange figure, who is this on the back, appears. He is known as Slewfoot, otherwise known as sort of the devil. And he appears and he kind of befriends Abatha. And they kind of have this odd relationship where they're kind of friends and help each other out. And it goes from there. But basically, Abatha really starts to go through it. The people in the village try to take her house away from her. They call her a witch, and all of this awful stuff happens. And ultimately, we have a story about Abatha getting her revenge. And it is sweet, sweet revenge. It's beautifully done. It's beautifully written. It's very sort of eerie and spooky, but also incredibly atmospheric. It's just beautiful. And Brom also did all of the artwork for the book. So there are some incredible sort of painted illustrations throughout this book. I'm going to see if I can find them. And Brom painted them all himself. And they're a bit creepy. They are a bit creepy, like really creepy, but they're just incredible. There's Slewfoot. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you like badass women who have been trodden on throughout their lives, getting revenge in a very nasty, male-centric world that's a bit spooky and a bit witchy, I would highly recommend this. I think you're going to love this. This is good stuff. This is great stuff, and it's perfect for autumn. So those are all of my autumnal recommendations. It's a bit of a mixed bag, but you know me, I like dark and things that are going to be brutal and rip my heart out, because that's usually what I find most comforting. So cozy season is usually, that's my go-to. I haven't read many sort of like cozy fantasy books. I know there are quite a few, but I've not read any of them. So if you do have any actual sort of cozy fantasy books that you would recommend me, please let me know in the comments below, because I could probably do with some of that, but I just like brutality apparently in my books, and just tears, destruction, devastation, all of the above. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any sort of autumnal recommendations that I haven't mentioned, anything that I've probably not heard of, please let me know in the comments below, because I love getting new recommendations. And if you would like to, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would be so grateful. It would mean the world to me. And if you would like to join and become a firm member of the Library of a Silversaint, then please do hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you here. Ernie would too. He's just whining in the background because it's probably tea time. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye.